My name is Clara, and there are nights that etch themselves into your memory, nights that you can never shake. That night, the restaurant sparkled as if every chandelier, every mirror, had been polished to reflect Kate's glory. Laughter bounced off marble walls, glasses chimed like tiny alarms, and waiters floated through the crowd with flutes of champagne. Every camera in the room seemed trained on her. Kate was radiant, silk clinging perfectly, hair catching the light, a smile that drew applause before she even spoke. And then Mom rose, glass in hand, eyes sparkling with pride like a diamond itself had leapt into her gaze. She looked straight at Kate and said the words that made my chest ache. To Kate, the daughter I'm truly proud of. Applause erupted. Forks clinked. Relatives beamed like suns around her. And me? I sat frozen, a smile glued to my face, hands trembling beneath the table like I was hiding from a predator. Dessert arrived, a lavish tower of sugar and cream, and a waiter slid a black leather folder toward me. I blinked at it. The bill. Almost $2,000. Staring back at me like a slap, like proof that my place in this family had been calculated in ink. Mom leaned close, voice sharp as a blade. Go on, Clara. Pay it. And just like that, humiliation ignited hotter than the candle flames. Not money, no. This was never about money. It was about hierarchy, about who they thought I was, about reinforcing my place in the family, second, invisible, expendable. Growing up, I'd learned the pattern early. Kate, the golden girl, got everything effortlessly. The ballet classes in the most expensive studio, the recitals with costumes that cost more than my entire back-to-school wardrobe. I asked for a science camp one summer. Mom's sigh was a verdict. Too expensive. Try the library program, she said, and I went, notebook in hand, hems crooked from sewing my own dresses. The script never changed. Kate got applause just for existing. I got responsibility. Afternoon rehearsals versus grocery shifts to pay for a graphing calculator. Tuition paid in full for Kate. I lived in a cramped apartment with 3 roommates, working double shifts to make instant ramen feel like dinner. Her social media screamed privilege and fun. My life was scrubs, overtime, and exhausted pride. Every question I dared to raise about fairness was met with the same cold lines. Different kids, different needs, Dad muttered. Don't be jealous, Clara, Mom said, voice tinged with disgust. But it wasn't jealousy. It was survival. And the survival was exhausting. Then came the call that changed everything, Judge Thompson's voice, calm, deliberate. Clara, I'm retiring. I recommended you as my successor. My throat went dry. Me? The one who had been ignored, overlooked, quietly erased in family photos and conversations? 3 weeks later, I was sworn in. The youngest judge in the district in 50 years. Recognition from the courts, handshakes from lawyers I admired, but at home? Nothing. Kate's life glittered online and in their eyes. Mine barely warranted a nod. Years passed, achievements stacking silently, invisible. Every request from Kate, rent, broken car, failed brand deal, was whispered to me first. Every can you help just this once? Tested my patience, my guilt, my boundaries. And then that night arrived. The engagement party. Chandeliers reflecting every angle of Kate's perfection. Cameras snapping, guests orbiting her brilliance. Mom tapped her glass. The room fell silent, every eye following her. To my beautiful Kate, she said. The daughter I'm most proud of. Applause broke around the table like surf, and I clapped quietly, heat crawling up my neck. Dessert arrived, and the waiter placed the folder, the check, in front of me. My pulse kicked like a hammer. Miss Clara? He asked, polite but precise. Mom's voice cut through before I could speak. As always, Clara will handle it. It's the least she can do for her sister's special day. The room shifted. Laughter trickled around corners. Kate sipped champagne, eyes sparkling with rehearsed joy. I looked at Dad. He cleared his throat, looked away. A cousin whispered, "That's not right." And in that instant I realized, this wasn't generosity. It wasn't tradition. It was ritualized humiliation. Heat flared along my spine. Silence had cost me years of respect and recognition. But tonight I wouldn't bow. I set the folder upright, steady as a monument, and looked Mom squarely in the eye. If Kate is your pride, let her pride pay tonight. The room froze. Napkins midair. Forks halfway to mouths. Chandeliers suddenly too bright. And in that quiet, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: power. Ownership. My own voice. Mom's smile thinned. Don't embarrass us. Just handle it, Clara. I tapped the bill. Calm, deliberate. This isn't tradition. It's humiliation. And I will not fund my own erasure, not tonight. Not ever. The manager hovered, unsure. Relatives glanced at each other. Kate's lips parted, caught between indignation and disbelief. I'll pay my portion, I added. The rest? Charge it to family pride. For once. A few murmurs of approval flickered. Kate's practiced glow faltered. Mom's eyes narrowed. But the weight had shifted. I slid the folder toward her and walked past the cake, past the spotlight, out into the night. Cold air hit my face, crisp and honest. For the first time in years, I wasn't invisible. I wasn't the one who always paid. I wasn't the quiet one anymore. And yet, the story was far from over. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Comment below. Have you ever been publicly humiliated by someone you love? What would you have done? And if you're enjoying this story, give it a like, it really helps the channel. The next morning, the city felt sharper, almost electric. The streetlights glinted on wet asphalt, and the chill of early spring bit through my coat like a reminder. Last night had changed everything. My phone buzzed relentlessly, 17 missed calls, 30 texts. Most were from relatives, their tones teetering between shock, curiosity, and apology. 3 were from my parents. None from Kate. I let it ring. Let it buzz. Let it be. Around noon, a quiet knock at the door broke the haze. I opened it to find Michael, my boyfriend, standing there, hands deep in his pockets, uncertainty written across his face. She doesn't know I'm here, he said softly. I stepped aside. He entered, looking around my apartment, the small space I'd carved out with thrifted furniture, indoor plants I nurtured like little victories, photographs of travels and patience, reminders that my life was mine. He paused by the framed nursing degree on the wall. Kolia, he said, voice low. Impressive. I went to Chicago for the program, I replied casually, reflexively deflecting praise I'd been conditioned to hide. He turned to me, eyes steady. Clara, last night you showed remarkable restraint. Honestly, I don't think most people could have done what you did. I laughed softly, bitterly. I didn't feel restrained. I felt like I finally put down a boulder I'd been carrying for years. He nodded, hesitant. She's hurting, but so are you. The way she's treated you. The need to outshine her own sister to feel worthy, it's not love. It's dependence. His words cut deeper than I expected. And what now? I asked quietly. You're rethinking the engagement? I said, not looking up. I don't know, he admitted. But I can't unsee it. I can't marry someone who needs to erase her sister to feel validated. The room fell quiet, the only sound the hum of traffic outside my window. The air was heavy, charged. And somewhere in the tension I realized, the power had shifted. I had been invisible for so long, but now, I was impossible to ignore. A few days later, Kate appeared at my door unannounced. Hair in a messy bun, no makeup, eyes red raw. She didn't speak at first. She just stepped inside, letting the silence stretch like old scar tissue. Finally, she whispered, "Why didn't you tell me?" I leaned back against the doorway, arms crossed. Would it have mattered? She didn't answer. Instead, her voice cracked a little more. I was supposed to be the successful one. You still can be, I said slowly, deliberately, but not by erasing me. The weight of those words seemed to settle in her chest. She nodded, small, almost fragile. I get it. I wasn't thinking about you. It wasn't closure. Not yet. But it was the first crack in a facade that had held for decades. Meanwhile, my parents were scrambling. Calls, texts, subtle apologies, attempts at explanations that reeked of performance more than sincerity. I listened, replied minimally, enforced boundaries with quiet precision. Therapy became my anchor. Sessions circled like stitches, trying to close the wound of years of neglect. I learned the difference between lonely and peaceful, between resentment and measured response. Kate's presence in my life changed too. No cameras, no staged interactions. She admitted her mistakes quietly, voice soft. The spotlight hit costs she hadn't had to pay. We started planning smaller birthdays, splitting checks, being fair without drama. Slowly, the pattern shifted. Respect became a currency I demanded, not one I begged for. And through it all, Michael's words echoed. Love isn't a ledger, it isn't debt, it isn't giving until you're invisible. Love is acknowledgement, equality, seeing the person in front of you, not just the shadow the family allows them to cast. For the first time, I realized that my family's favoritism wasn't about love at all. It was leverage. It was control. It was the subtle weaponization of attention and applause. And now, for the first time, I had a map out. I didn't need to erase Kate. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to fight publicly anymore. Though the urge lingered like fire smoldering under cold ash. What I needed was recognition on my terms. My voice, my accomplishments, my boundaries. And nothing could take that from me. The cracks in the household were widening. Mom hovered on the edge, orbiting her habits like gravity she refused to relinquish. Dad kept calling, asking how to make amends, but listening, truly listening, was a foreign skill. Kate came closer, slowly, carefully, learning humility for the first time. And me? I was no longer the daughter who paid the bills, who swallowed quiet indignities, who vanished behind the glitter of my sister. I was Clara. Boundaries intact. My achievements mine. My voice loud, calm, and unbroken. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Comment below. Have you ever had to assert yourself against years of favoritism? What did you do? And if you're enjoying this story, give it a like, it really helps the channel. The weeks that followed felt like a reckoning. I didn't storm into family gatherings with a dramatic announcement. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I didn't demand applause. Instead, I let my actions speak in the quietest, most unshakable way possible. Invitations arrived for dinners, birthdays, and brunches. I RSVP'd selectively on my own terms. Each time my conditions were simple. Respect boundaries, no public humiliation, no surprise bills, no golden child theatrics. If those terms were broken, I left. Without explanation. Without apology. My presence became a reminder. My worth was not for sale. When I did show up, the energy shifted. Mom hovered at the edge, as if orbiting a habit she couldn't fully shake. She watched me laugh at a joke, pour wine carefully into my own glass, refuse a toast that diminished me, and the tension built like a storm cloud that couldn't be ignored. Dad, ever the silent enforcer, tried to navigate peace. Clara, we want to do better, he said one afternoon over coffee. His voice was steady, apologetic. How do we start? Notice first, I told him, deliberately calm. Then say it out loud. Don't hide it behind tradition, obligation, or fear of making waves. He nodded slowly, the lesson sinking in, finally tangible. Kate too was different. No cameras. No pretense. Just her and me, sharing moments that hadn't existed before. Real laughter, honest conversations, her admitting that the spotlight she had lived in came at a cost I had silently paid for years. I didn't think about you, she whispered one evening. I hid behind it. I forgot you were here. You're learning, I said softly. And that's the first step. Talent isn't entitlement. If you want the crown, wear the cost too. I didn't gloat. I didn't relish humiliation or revenge in a dramatic sense. My revenge was quieter, sharper. Boundaries enforced, respect reclaimed, fairness demanded. It wasn't about punishment, it was about survival, acknowledgement, and finally breathing without carrying the invisible chains of my family's favoritism. Every interaction became a lesson for them, and a victory for me. Mom learned that control isn't love. Dad learned that silence can hurt more than confrontation. Kate learned that shining doesn't require dimming someone else. And I learned that I didn't need approval or applause to exist fully. The power of boundaries wasn't vengeance in the traditional sense, it was liberation. Each polite refusal, each confident step back, each insistence on fairness chipped away at the old narrative. The girl who had once been invisible was now visible, unflinching, undeniable. One evening I sat on my balcony. Chicago's skyline spread beneath me like a living city of lights. My phone buzzed again, messages from relatives apologizing, curious, even admiring. My parents had begun to really notice the cost of their patterns. Kate's text came without expectation, just honesty. I get it now. I want to do better. I smiled. Finally, the quiet work of years, paying my own way, building my life, asserting my voice, had transformed the landscape. The family that had trained me to be invisible now had to see me, respect me, engage with me as an equal. My peace was earned and it was untouchable. Therapy sessions stitched closed wounds I didn't realize were still raw. I understood the difference between lonely and free, between guilt and principle. I realized that love doesn't cost you your dignity, and family isn't always about tradition, it's about mutual respect. Sometimes Kate would linger longer, a conversation stretching into shared laughter, a rare moment of understanding. Mom occasionally approached, hesitant, orbiting like she did in the past, testing her boundaries against mine. Maybe she would step closer. Maybe she wouldn't. I could wait. I had learned patience, strength, and the value of silence used as armor rather than surrender. And in that quiet reclamation of my life, something extraordinary happened. I no longer needed validation. I no longer needed to fight for my space, to prove my worth with dollars, achievements, or trophies. I had defined it myself. I was visible, unapologetically present, and unshakable. If you've ever lived under favoritism disguised as love, or been asked to shrink for someone else's comfort, you know this. Boundaries aren't revenge, they're instructions. They're the blueprint for healthy relationships. And setting them doesn't make you cruel. It makes you free. Have you faced this in your own life? Comment below and share your story. I see you. And if this story resonated, don't forget to subscribe for more true stories of courage, resilience, and taking back your voice. Because sometimes the loudest act of rebellion isn't shouting, standing still, clear, and finally saying no.